October the 25th, Webcaps. Webcaps, Cortinarius species, is the genus of larger fungi with the greatest number of species. They are also the most difficult to identify in the field, as microscopic details are often needed to accurately confirm an identification. This is a great pity, as it is believed they could be used as field indicators of important rare habitats, in much the same way that certain mosses and lichens are used to recognize ancient woodland. They are mainly fungi of coniferous and deciduous woods across Europe, and their presence in a wood is generally cause for some excitement, as so many are rare and unknown. Although they vary greatly in colour, size, and shape, they are often easily recognized by their cobweb-like threads, the cortina, that join the cap to the stem. When young, they are also covered in a veil, remnants of which are often left on the cap. It is, however, their colours that attract most attention. Many are various shades of yellow and brown, especially ochre and tan, although some have caps that are chocolate or even pink. The most unforgettable colours are the purple species, and those that are either an intense blood red or cinnamon red. It is not wise to pick any to eat, as they are nearly all believed to contain one toxin or another. In fact, the edibility of many is still quite unknown, and one or two in London are definitely deadly poisonous. Another reason for not collecting them is that some are on the red data list of endangered species. As there are so many webcaps, it has been necessary to divide them into various smaller groups, subgenera, which may help to narrow down the field a little when trying to identify them. The Telamonia group tend to be small, brown, and have rings on their stems. The Leprosibes are often either olive yellow or perhaps reddish-orange and have no stem rings. The Dermocybes are usually much strongly coloured, perhaps with green, orange, and red appearing together in a single species. They also tend to have more slender stems and either silky or fibrous caps. Sticky caps and sticky stems often indicates the Myxacium group, whereas sticky caps and dry stems is more typical of the Phlegmaciums. Lastly, unlike many other webcaps, Dermocybe species do not change colour in wet conditions and often show some violet coloration, especially when young. Some of the purple webcaps are quite unforgettable for the depth of their colour, which in some species seems to almost disappear into black as you look at them. Cortinarius violaceus has to be one of the most intensely coloured living things that exists in London. It also has a slightly metallic sheen due to minute scales on its cap, as well as a slight smell of cedar. Cortinarius purpurescens is equally arresting, although its cap is more of a greyish-brown. Its gills are a deep violet, and its stem bruises an even deeper violet when handled. Cortinarius soda ignitus is another beauty, which is a bright shade of violet that then fades with age. Cortinarius cerulescens is more of a grey, blue, and violet mixture. It has beautiful amethyst-coloured gills. Many of these species start off with strong purples that quickly turn into shades of brown. Cortinarius alboviolaceus is a much paler species, but due to its silvery appearance and flushes of pale violet, always stands out in beech woods. Others in this group that may be encountered are Cortinarius crociocerulus, which is another pale species that smells of radishes, Cortinarius langii, which has pale lilac gills, and Cortinarius pseudosala, which often gets confused for a bluet. There is also an equally memorable group of blood red webcaps. The most noticeable and widely spread, distributed in our area, is Cortinarius sanguineus, whose colour has been described as somewhere between an intense blood red and carmine. It is often the case in these species that the cap, stem, and flesh are all deeply suffused with the same colour. Cortinarius semisanguineus, as its name suggests, is not quite so brilliant as some of the others, but there is still enough blood colour and cinnabar red for it to be used to dye wool. In Cortinarius puniceus, there is also a touch of purple, as well as a chestnut brown patch in the centre of the cap. Two others that stand out are Cortinarius phoenicius, which has bright red stem with a brown cap, and Cortinarius saniosus, which has cinnamon red gills under a tawny ochre cap. One other species that has to be mentioned is Cortinarius cinnabarinus, which also has cinnabar red gills, but in this case a much brighter cap that can vary from reddish-brown through orange to a shocking vermilion. Although it would be a brave Londoner that settled down to a plate of webcaps, there could well be some people that confuse them for either chanterelles or bluets. It is fortunate the most deadly poisonous species, for example, Cortinarius orellanine and Cortinarius rubellus, prefer the warmer parts of Europe, the latter species being more or less confined to the Alps. However, many in London do contain smaller amounts of the same orellanine toxins. It was only in the 1950s, when there was a mass poisoning in Poland involving over 100 people, that the effects of these toxins were properly understood. It often leads to kidney failure in 1 or 2 weeks, depending upon how much was eaten. Webcap poisoning in Britain is not unknown, with 2 holidaymakers in Scotland having to have kidney transplants after confusing Cortinarius speciosimus with chanterelles. Among the many other webcaps that cannot be identified in the field, 1 or 2 are so brightly coloured they are also worth mentioning. Cortinarius armillatus has very noticeable cinnabar red bracelets on a pale brown stem. Cortinarius trivialis has a very glutinous yellow-brown cap, sticky white bands on its stem, and lavender-coloured gills. Cortinarius triumphans stands out for its size with an ochre yellow cap, perhaps up to 12 centimetres across. It also has a russet ochre bands along its stems. Others stand out for their smells. Cortinarius Pediaceus has a pointed cap covered in scales and smells of pelargoniums, whereas the clay and purple coloured Cortinarius taurus is sickly sweet with a hint of camphor. Often webcaps are not found at all on many London forays. The best places to look for them are less frequented and relatively untouched areas of ancient woodland, such as Limpsfield Chart.